Welcome to another edition of NASCAR DFS preview with the Sports Chief. I'm AustYn. So we're heading out. Well, we are in the last race of this West Coast swing at Phoenix Raceway. I keep wanting to call it Phoenix International. I believe the real true name is Phoenix Raceway now. It's no longer ISM Raceway, which is a mile I guess you can call it a tri-oval track. It's not a short track. But you do get around this track pretty quick. It's average speeds go around 130 couple mile an hour if you're really fast, about 130 as far as an average lap speed goes. So it's going to be interesting to see this week's race. Recapping last week, actually, we had a really good day, actually. We were in first for a long time in actually the big tournament for DraftKings. But so were about 300 other people that had the same exact lineup we did. Ryan Blaney had the issues there at the end, and that kind of cost us a little bit. But all in all, it was a very successful day with us at the Sports Chief. So it was pretty exciting to see that, and we've got a lot of momentum heading into this week. And it's going to be fun to pick the lineups here. It was actually pretty tough for me, being we actually had qualifying. I don't know if rain is in the forecast. The weather is going to be about 10 or 15 degrees colder than it was on Saturday. So that's one thing to consider, I guess. Cooler track temps, cooler temperatures in general. One of the kings of this track is probably Kevin Harvick, and he's going to be pretty highly owned. He's starting in second spot, and Chase Elliott actually got the pole for this week's race at the FanShield 500. So let's go ahead and see what DraftKings has to offer, and hopefully we can help you make your lineup for this week and give you some good tips. So let's see what we got here. So let me scroll up here to the top. So the most expensive driver on the slate is Kyle Busch, starting in 10th at $12,000. Martin Truex Jr. starting in 12th at $11,600. Kevin Harvick starting in second at $11,300. So we got three guys above $11K. Joey Logano starting in 13th at $10,700. Brad K starting in 14th at $10,400. And then Danny Hamlin starting in third at $10,200. So we have six guys that are over $10,000. And then Ryan Blaney really close at $9,900. And Chase Elliott, of course, starting on the pole at $9,600. So looking at this, I believe Martin Truex is actually starting at the back. He has to go to the rear of the field. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if it was an engine change or like a radiator change. I know a couple guys had to go to the back, and Truex is one of them. I believe the other was Hunter Nemechek. So it's going to be pretty tough for me to pick him. It's going to be pretty tough for him to make his way up there. And even though he's starting in 12th, that's a really good starting position. His car just didn't show a huge amount of speed. Kyle Busch showed pretty decent speed. He actually finished third in the Xfinity race. Wasn't too happy about that. Brandon Jones actually hunted him down and passed him and won by like 4 seconds. So pretty good for Brandon Jones. But looking here, Kevin Harvick's going to be highly owned. Like I said, he's got 9 wins here. His average finish is 9.2. He was on the long runs, 10, 15, 20 lap runs. He was pretty much first or second, in all of those segments in happy hour. It's first practice was a little tough to tell because there wasn't a whole lot to choose from the sample size wasn't very large. I'm gonna get it out. I'm gonna get it right one of these days. The sample size was not large enough to credit what actually happened in that first practice. I think you can look at it a little bit. But Kevin Harvick was pretty quick. Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski were actually the stars to me. So Brad K was P1 in happy hour as far as the 15, 20, 25, 30 lap runs. I mean, he was first, so he was beating Harvick every time. Joey Logano was fastest in the 5-lap run, and then he was third place in 10, 15, and 20 lap runs in happy hour. That's good enough for me to consider both of these guys. I'm not even going to look towards the bottom. I just know those spots are really good, and at 13 and 14, it's going to be hard for me to pass up these two Penske drivers. And I know it's going to be pretty tough for me to choose here. Later on down the road, on salary, as I only have $7,200 to spend. But I do really like Logano and Keselowski. I think either one of these guys could win the race, and I would say they have a very high chance of getting a top 5, which that's spots, crucial spots. You could argue that Harvick will lead a lot of laps, but Chase Elliott's car looked really fast too. And I know it's hard to pass here, but I just like those drivers. And that's what I'm going with. Definitely going with a cash game strategy this week. It's not as risky, I guess you can say. So, yep, that's what I'm going there. Scroll on down here. So now that we have $7,200. Excuse me, I'll just move the thing there a little bit. Now that we have $7,200, I'm going to go down here, and really the last driver you can consider is probably Ryan Preece, starting in 20th. And one thing to note, I really struggled with making this decision. Ryan Preece, if you look at his long run speed, he was actually a top 15 car in a lot of in the happy hour segments as far as the 5, 10, and 15 lappers go. He looked really quick. If he was starting in 25th on back, it would be a no-brainer for me. It's hard for me to justify him getting a top 20, like even like a top 15, the 5 spots, and I think you roughly get 20 some odd points for that. Sorry, I don't know that right off the top of my head, but I can't go with him right yet. So who am I going to go with? I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick again. I feel like I pick Tyler Reddick every week, but he's starting in 29th. He's always, in the top 15. He looked like he was pretty fast last week and the week before that, to be honest. So Tyler Reddick actually, and now this is one thing, going back earlier in the video, I talked about how first practice was a little tough to go off of. Well, Tyler Reddick was actually the fastest car on a 10-lap run. So you have that. It was like 27.3. I hope it ain't 28.3. Anyway, he was pretty quick. So I like Tyler Reddick there at 29th. And scrolling on up here, this is a guy that's going to be chalky as all get out. But I'm going with AustYn Dillon. He's starting in 30th, and I know he wrecked in qualifying. I know he actually did not have long runs in practice. He only had a 5-lap run, and it was like a 27.5, which is... It was mid-pack. It was, top 20-ish, so to speak. If he could get 18th, the value of 12 spots plus those 20-some-odd points, that's 30-some points. That's a pretty good value for me. And that's who I'm going to go with, AustYn Dillon. And I'm going to scroll up here to a guy that, looked really quick in practice. So, William Byron. As far as a 25-lap run, he was actually third. So as the practice went on, he stayed kind of in that top 5. He was normally around top 10. If Byron can get me a top 10, that would be great. I think he can contend for the win, but I really like his starting position in that spot. So William Byron's my guy. And scrolling on, on down here, we have 6,200. This was what I really battled with, was going with Ryan Preece or Ty Dillon. So Ty Dillon was just a tad slower, honestly, than Preece in practice. I'm talking like 0.005, back. He was really close. Maybe 0.05. Not quite a tenth, but half a tenth off. So that's pretty crucial to me. He's starting in 25th. The likelihood of him getting a top 20 is decently high, actually, according to speed. And Preece's likelihood is pretty high as well, but, I get 5 spots that I can play with. And, drivers like Buescher, Chastain, I think they're a little slower. I think McDowell qualified higher. So, yeah, I really like those spots. So that's what we're going with. A few other drivers to keep in mind. Kurt Busch, starting in 7th, has a pretty good track record here. He was pretty quick in practice as well. It was really hard for me not to choose him. One thing that I looked at this week was driver loop data, and Kurt's actually been a really good driver here at Phoenix. He's typically always hanging around that top 15. He had a really good showing last week at California with the top 5, so he would be an interesting choice. So let's go ahead and clean it up here. Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. Those would be my two choices to win this race. I actually think Brad Keselowski will win the race. He just looks bad fast in practice. That Penske car looks hooked up. We're going with William Byron. 2 Fords, a Chevy, and we're going to go Chevy all the way out. So Austin Dillon at 7.5, starting in 30th, starting position. Tyler Reddick in 29th, and Ty Dillon in 25th. So short track racing, this is not typically the lineup you go with, but that's what we're going with. So best of luck to everyone out there at the FanShield 500. Hopefully this helped you out a little bit. For all those guys going Kevin Harvick, hey, I'm rooting you on. Hopefully he can do well. Chase Elliott was really hard for me to stay away from as well. Typically this race, the guys that win typically start in the top 10. I'm hoping that this week's a little bit of an outlier. I was a little upset that like 300 other people had the same lineup as us. So maybe we differentiated ourselves a little bit. I believe if I went Priest, that would have really put us out there. But best of luck to everyone out there. Check us out at www.thesportschief.com. We're also on Twitter at thesportschief and on Instagram at thesportschief. We cover a lot of different subjects. We have Song of the Day. That's one cool thing we do. So if you like music, hey, maybe wake up in the morning, you can hear what the Sports Chief has to serenade you. So best of luck to you, and have a good race weekend.